In this video, I'll be showing you System Configuration XML feature using WSMAN, and we'll be exporting the system configuration, making configuration changes, and then we'll be importing it on the same host. So first I want to show you the command that we'll be using for exporting the system configuration. We'll be using WinRM since this is on a Windows management station. And the method we'll be using is export system configuration, which runs on the LC service class, and you'll be using your idrac username, password, IP address, and in the brackets you'll be passing in the parameters for the network share, and we support NFS and CIFS. So I will be using an NFS share, so I'll be passing in my IP address, file name, you can call it any name, my share name, share type 0 for NFS, 2 would be for CIFS, and then username and password for the network share. So let's go ahead and execute this command. Passing in my idrac IP address, and this should return a job ID to the screen, which we can query the progress of the export system configuration. So we'll just be using WinRM run the git command on the job ID itself, and you see here it's running, it's at 20%, so we can go ahead and query again. You notice here it's 100% and it's completed successfully. Export usually takes 20 to 40 seconds depending on your system configuration. So now let's go to the NFS share and look at the export XML. So you notice here it starts off by showing you the model type, the service tag, the timestamp of when the export was generated. And any comments will be up here if devices that we support don't exist on the system. So currently I don't have an FCHBA card, so that's why this message is shown here. So now it's going to go through and it's going to have all the configuration attributes that we support. So you see here there's Lifecycle Controller, there's System, there's idrac attributes, there's BIOS attributes, there's NIC attributes, and then there's RAID attributes. And you will have your controller attributes first, and then if you have a VD on the host, it will also show the VD, which we currently have a RAID 0 on this system. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to set a few attributes per device in the XML. So I'm going to start off with setting a few idrac attributes. Next I'm going to set some BIOS attributes. And also under the BIOS FQDD, we also support setting system and setup password attributes. So in this scenario, I'm going to set the system password. But let me first show you from WSMAN that currently it is not set. And you notice here system password and is set is equal to false, so it's not set. So we're going to go ahead and uncomment the old, and since nothing is set, we're just going to set it to blank. And now we want to set the password, so I'm just going to set it to system. And also under BIOS, we support setting all the boot orders and also one-time boot devices. So when import completes, it will one-time boot to the device that you pass in here in XML. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to set the BIOS boot order also. And here you can move around these devices, or you can just pass in one, which will push it to the front of the boot order. So that's what I'm going to do in this scenario is I'm going to set the second NIC port as my first device in the boot order. Okay, now I'm just going to configure just do one attribute for a couple ports here. And now I'm going to do RAID. First I'm going to do controller attributes, and in this scenario, what I want to do is actually remove the RAID 0 and create a RAID 1. So to do that, we need to reset the controller card. So we're going to change this to true. And also I'm going to configure the controller key. And we'll go here, look at WSMAN again. And you notice here that key ID is set to null and security status is set to 1, which means a controller key is not set. So we first pass in local key management. And you want to go ahead and set the key ID, pass in any valid string value. And then we uncomment new controller key and pass in a key that meets the requirements as same in the option realm. Let's go ahead and just change one of these controller attributes. And next we want to, since we're clearing the controller card, we want to create the new VD. So we're going to change this to create. Let me go ahead and show you here from WSMAN that we do have a RAID 0 created. See here, RAID type is equal to 2, which is 0, and then you see the name here. So what we want to do is we want to uncomment these attributes, and we comment these out because if you decide to import this XML on another system and you do not want to remove the current VD on that host, then it will not remove it. So we're going to go ahead and change this name to RAID 1. Change the size to 0. Anytime you pass in 0, it will use the full size of the drives. I'm going to change this to RAID 1. And we just want to save and exit. And next we want to do is import this export XML. So the method we'll be using for import is import system configuration. It runs on the LC service class, and then in the brackets you just want to use the same parameters and values that you passed in for the export batch file. So here I have my same values for my NFS share. So we're going to go ahead and execute this command. This should return a job ID to the screen. And we can go ahead and query this job ID. And first it's going to analyze idrac system or LC attributes and make any changes if needed. And then if any BIOS, RAID, or NIC changes are detected, then the host will reboot and go into the Lifecycle Controller side to execute setting those attributes. So since we set BIOS, NIC, and RAID, the host should be rebooting. So here's the host, and you notice here that it has rebooted. And you see here that the flag is set to enter Lifecycle Controller. So we can go and also query the job status while this is running. Notice here now it's showing running applying configuration changes. And once it gets into the automated task application, we can query the job status again, and you will start seeing progress of setting the attributes. So now we're in the automated task application. You see here your same import job ID. This usually takes 40 seconds to a minute and a half depending on your system configuration. So now we can go back here and we could query the job status from WSMAN. You'll start seeing progress. You see here now it's at 36%, so we can continue to query it. And now it's up 70%. Go back here. And for this system configuration, it took 51 seconds to complete. So we can go back here and we can query again the job status, which is now at 90%, which is reporting that the automated task application is complete. Now we're just waiting on the refresh of the configuration database to update the new attribute changes. So the host has rebooted again after exiting the LC. So we should be prompted here during post to enter the system password since we set it, which we are. So we'll go ahead and enter it. So now we're just waiting on collecting system inventory to complete, and once that completes, the refresh should also be completed. And then we can query the job status again, which should show 100% complete. So you'll see here we're now running collecting system inventory. So now let's go back and query the job status. You see it's still at 90, so the refresh is still occurring. So you see here now we're at 100% complete, and it shows successfully imported the system configuration XML file. So let's go ahead and check the VD that's now on the system. You notice here we have array type 4, which is array 1. You see here the name is changed to array 1. Let's look at the controller view. You notice now that security status is set to 2, which means a key is set, and you see that the name that we passed in for key ID is now set. And let's look at BIOS password. You notice here now for system password is set to true. So now for all the other attributes and also for the VD that was created and setting the system password, all these entries will be in the LC log. So I'm going to go ahead and now export the LC log to a CIF share. So I'll be using the export LC log method. So this is going to return a job ID to the screen. So let's go ahead and query that job ID. Usually this takes about 20 to 30 seconds to complete. We see here that it's successful. So now we're going to open the export LC log, but we're going to search for the import job ID, which will make it easier to query and look for all the attributes that we set. So I'm going to query the overall job store to get the import job ID. Alright, so now I'm going to go to my CIF share and open the export LC log. So now I'm going to go ahead and query for that import job ID. You notice here first will show the idrac attributes, and you notice here we set telnet, old value, new value. Here's the port that we changed the value to. Then next is going to be RAID. You notice here delete, which is we reset the controller card configuration. Lock is we create a key. Here's the one attribute we changed for the controller. And then here's create for the new RAID we created. Next will be BIOS. Here's that one attribute we changed. Here's the new boot sequence. You notice here that nic.1-2.1 is now first in the boot order. And then also setting of the system password. Then last will be the NIC attributes. So you see here, wake on LAN, and then here's for the other port. And that is the end of the video. Thank you.